For 2 seasons, he looked like the most terrifying striker on earth. Then, almost overnight, one of football's brightest talents simply switched off. The story of Adriano is the saddest what if the game has ever known. Adriano was a Brazilian striker, and physically he seemed almost too good to be true. He was huge, powerful and quick, with a left foot that could shatter nets from any distance. He made his name in Italy, at Inter Milan. Fans there gave him a nickname that said everything about how they saw him. They called him l'imperatore, the emperor. Around 2004 and 2005, he was unstoppable. He scored goals of ridiculous power, bullied defenders off the ball, and looked destined to become the best striker in the world. His shooting was the stuff of legend. He would take a touch, set himself, and blast the ball so hard that goalkeepers barely moved. Defenders backed off, terrified of the strike. For Brazil, he shone too, winning trophies and looking like the natural heir to the great forwards before him. Everything pointed to a decade at the very top of the game. In his prime, even video game players knew his power. His shooting rating was famously among the highest ever, and a generation remembers picking him just to unleash those thunderbolts. Then, in 2004, tragedy struck away from football. Adriano's father, the man he loved and played for most of all, died suddenly. It broke something inside him that never fully healed. Adriano and his father had been incredibly close. His dad had been there through the hard years, when the family had little. Losing him tore away the reason Adriano felt he was playing. He fell into a deep depression. The joy drained out of his football. He began to drink heavily, and slowly the discipline that had built his career started to crumble away. On the pitch, the decline was visible. His fitness dropped, his sharpness faded. The terrifying emperor became a shadow, turning up out of shape and out of form, his spark gone. Inter tried to help him. They gave him time, support and patience, hoping he would recover. But grief is not solved by football, and the pullback to his troubles was too strong. Eventually he returned to Brazil, hoping home would heal him. There were brief flashes of the old brilliance, reminders of what he had been, but the consistency never came back. He drifted between clubs, his weight fluctuating, his commitment questioned. The player who had once terrified Europe was now a cautionary tale, spoken about with sadness rather than awe. His decline unfolded slowly and publicly, which made it harder. Fans watched a giant talent shrink season by season, always hoping for a comeback that in the end never truly arrived. Teammates described a warm, generous man who simply lost his way. This was never a story of a bad character. It was a good person crushed by a grief he could not carry alone. What makes it so painful is how avoidable it can feel. This was not a player who lacked talent. He had more raw ability than almost anyone. He lacked support at his lowest moment. Adriano himself later spoke openly about it. He admitted that after his father died, he simply stopped caring about football. The game that had lifted his family no longer had meaning. It is a reminder that footballers are people first. Behind the muscles and the goals was a grieving son who could not cope, and no amount of talent could fill that hole. For years, fans have shared clips of his best moments, marveling at the power. Everyone comes with the same thought. Imagine what he could have been, if life had been kinder. Compare him to the strikers who stayed at the top for a decade. The gap was rarely talent. It was often circumstance, support, and the strength to keep going through personal pain. Here is my honest opinion. Adriano is football's saddest what if. His story is not about a lazy player wasting a gift. It is about a grieving man the sport could not save. It carries a hard lesson for the game. Clubs invest fortunes in talent, but far less in the human being behind it. Mental health support can save careers, and sometimes far more. Adriano's legacy is complicated. He is remembered for astonishing highlights and for heartbreak in equal measure. Few players inspire such a mix of wonder and sorrow at the same time. The lesson reaches far beyond football. Talent alone is fragile. Without support, without care, and without something to keep you going, even the greatest gift can quietly slip away. So that is the rise and fall of Adriano. A terrifying, unstoppable striker undone by grief and a lack of support, not a lack of talent. The emperor who had everything and lost his way. If you love football stories told straight, subscribe to Sports Vogue so the next one finds you, and share this with a mate who would argue about it all night. And tell us in the comments which story we should break down next. We will see you at the next one.